Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the June meeting of the Kent Planning Board. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I just have one announcement: is that our member Sabrina Cruz has resigned from the board due to personal issues. I just want to take this time to thank her for her service on the planning board over the few years she's been here, and we appreciate her time. We also have Kathy in as an alternate, and first we need to do is the minutes from last month. Everybody hopefully has read them, and I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as written. Anybody wants to second that?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes approved. Okay. The Hudson Valley Aikido. Let the record show that Tom Ferrone has recused himself.
Good evening, everyone. Thomas Ferrone, I'm the consultant for Hudson Valley Aikido, the applicant. We have Mr. Mark Zay here with us if you need to ask him any questions. Mark's the owner. I will remind you, Mark is a Town of Kent resident, and Hudson Valley Aikido is a small Town of Kent business, which I think everyone likes to see and hear. I will state that all requirements that were suggested by the planning board, including the consultants, have been addressed, including Mr. Andrews' memo of May 30th, which I received this morning. And I will add one final note that regarding the Putnam County Department of Health approval, I did call them today regarding the report I submitted. It was sort of stuck in an email box. He did request that I submit 2 copies of each, the site plan, the report, plus the certification. He'll keep one, and he'll send one to New York City DEP for approval. But it appears like it's just a formality at this point. So right now, that's all we have regarding the project. So. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Barber, I'm the town's environmental planning consultant. This application has been before the board several occasions. It's been honed. There's been site visits conducted. In essence, this is a adaptive or a change in use of an existing building. There's no plans to expand the footprint or the external aspects of the building. It's a change in use from what had been originally, or in the past, I understand, a tavern and then a pizza restaurant, and now a less intensive use as a martial arts studio. There are several important improvements that have been done as part of this process, a lot of them done to the parking and the ingress and egress to the building, signage, striping, guide rails that's put because as you get to the end of the parking area, it's steeply sloped to the bottom. The septic system has been examined. There's a 100% expansion area shown on the plans, and eventually there is septic repairs necessary, which had heretofore not been shown. And so at this point in time, the board determined that it was appropriate to advertise for public hearing, so you may wish to open the public hearing at this time.
Who would like to make the motion to open the public hearing for Hudson Valley Aikido?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody here that would like to come right up?
Hi, planning board members. Good evening. Bob Eulich. Actually, a resident and a neighbor of Mr. Mark. Is that how you pronounce it? Zay, I'm sorry. We've never met before. It's the first time. Glad to have you in the neighborhood. The place looks great. I did have a couple of questions, if I may. First, in reference to, and I don't think any of these are big deals, but I just wanted to get confirmation. The first thing is the use has changed from tavern to martial arts studio, and there was, as Mr. Barber mentioned, a deli in between. I don't know, for the record, does that need to be inclusive? Does it make a difference at this point? I'm not sure if it's anything that's outstanding, but I just wanted to get that into the record if anything needs to be changed or looked at. The guardrails, I wanted to ask a little bit about the guardrail. Is there any specific dimensions or types? I'm just curious as to what's being put in there. Is that possible to get that information? Should I step away?
I'll go around.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Sorry.
We don't have specifics regarding that.
Okay.
I would say if you wanted an idea of what it would be, you go down to that deli on the corner that opened up recently.
Yes.
It's going to probably be something like that.
Terrific.
So if that's good enough for you.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, keep going.
Don't go far. The second one, or third one actually, is in reference to the NYSEG approved lighting. Obviously, a concern of the lighting. My house is right there, as I mentioned, directly behind the property. I was just trying to get, and I couldn't quite clearly understand the direction of the lighting. I believe there's going to be a pole lighting, if I'm not mistaken, on the telephone pole that's right there. And I'm assuming it would be pointed out towards Towners Road, not towards my bedroom window. I just want to make sure that was in fact true.
Did you get the request to hang the flag?
It's a downward shielded light that's actually was requested by the Department of Planning.
Okay, terrific. And then just one additional question into, in reference to the lighting. What is the, I guess I'll ask, switch? Is it dusk to dawn? Is it stay on all the time? Is it going to be a timed light? I mean, obviously I prefer that it wouldn't be on from dusk to dawn, but I just don't know what the intentions were.
It could either be dust to dawn or Tom, you want a motion detector? What would be best for you?
I'd like to tap in and have them pay my NYSEG bill. That would be great, but
That would be a fair choice.
like I said, I would prefer it not to be dusk to dawn. If it was either timed or on a switch, whatever's easier. When the business is obviously booming, and I wish you all the best, it'd be preferable to either have it on a switch or have it timed.
Okay.
All right,
Yes, absolutely.
great. A little bit more particulars about the land itself. Is there any plans to do any work to the hill that's all on the side? I don't know if you had intentions, and I know we haven't talked. I apologize. I'm putting you on the spot. And I do apologize. You are obviously a very good neighbor. I'm glad to see that you're really in there and bringing the business up. I truly appreciate it. But that hill has always been kind of a, I guess I'll say a cumbersome project. A lot of times there's a lot of refuge that falls over the side. I just wasn't sure if you're planning to get in there. I wasn't sure if you're planning to do any tree work in there, and then your refuge cleaning work up. Obviously, I can work with you on that too. And I think that's really it. That's all the questions I have. Thank you very much for your time. And again, I wish you the best of luck. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Bob.
See you
Thank
tomorrow
you.
at the conference? Lakes Conference, no?
Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it. I got called into work.
Okay, yeah, people have to do that.
Is there anybody else have any comments on this project? So if there's not, I will look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second? Yeah, I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, and for the board's consideration this evening, there's a draft approving the resolution dated today. It is a declaration of lead agency. This is type 2 action under seeker. There are no additional involved agencies at present, so you are the lead agency. Also, this is type 2 action under seeker. This is for a site plan, sign, change of use, and special use permit approval with conditions for Hudson Valley Aikido. As indicated, the building itself will not be changed. There's predominantly site improvements for safety, lighting, parking, etc. There is no requirement, because there is no site disturbance, for a stormwater pollution prevention plan or an steep slope and erosion sediment control permit. There is no requirement for a wetland permit, as there's no site disturbance, nor are there wetlands within 100 feet of the proposed action. There are some conditions of approval, but interestingly, this is a rare circumstance where, because there is no performance issues involved, there's no erosion issues involved, there's no wetlands involved, there is no opportunity for any bonding of this particular project. As much as we might want to, there is not. And so basically, some simple conditions satisfying both Mr. Andrews and mine most recent comment memos. The Health Department final approval, which has been alluded to earlier. We're waiting just to hear the approved change of use. To Bobby's point, it was a tavern, then a deli pizza place, then a martial arts, going in the direction of less and less gallons per day being discharged to the septic. We're hopeful that the Health Department will see that and approve the change of use. The septic system has been inspected, found to be in working order and certified as such, and as I indicated, 100% expansion has been located on the site, that in the eventuality of a failure, a septic system repair could be located relatively easily. The sign that is to be installed must, of course, meet town zoning code requirements prior to issuance of a building permit. And basically, just to be clear, this is conditional approval. These conditions have to be met before chairman signs the plans. The approval is actually good for a period of 2 years. Construction must be started prior to that. And the special use permit, oddly enough, is only good for 1 year following the date of this resolution. So we need to make sure that this is moving forward, which I'm sure it will be. Other than that, it would be a roll call vote. And of course, Mr. Ferroni will be recusing himself for the record.
Okay. So we're just accepting the,
Motion second.
okay, motion to accept the resolution for the declaration of lead agency for the planning board and the resolution of type 2 secret with conditional approval. The conditions are stated within the draft. Oh, sorry, it's not a draft anymore. So,
Not now.
not now. Into the resolution, and
This would be for site plan approval, change of use, sign approval, and special use permit.
for site plan approval, sign approval. What was the other one?
Change of use,
Change of use. That's it.
special use
And
permit.
special use permit.
You want me to
Okay.
make?
No. Who would like to make that motion to accept this as stated?
I'll make the motion as stated.
And who'd like to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. And Giancarlo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rich Moroni, how do you vote?
Aye.
Kathy Doherty, how do you vote?
Aye.
And myself is aye.
And again, for the record, Mr. Ferroni has recused himself.
And for the record, Tom Ferroni has recused himself from this vote.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, next on the list is Morrow Equipment. Tom is rejoining us.
Good evening, Jamie LaJudas from Inside Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. Also present with us is Ron Yakin from Morrow Equipment and Jennifer Gray from Keenan Bean.
From where? I'm
From
sorry.
where, sorry? I couldn't
Keenan
hear.
Bean?
Okay. I
Sorry.
thought I recognized it.
Talk more into the mic. I just wanted to start the discussion off on just the general history of the site itself, and then walk through some existing conditions and then the project, moving through to what Morrow Equipment actually is and what they're looking to do, and then also what the variances we're looking for. So the history of the project came before this board in 2007 as the Mountain View Realty site plan. They gained approval in '09. There was 3 development pads for contractors, office and storage, with 3 buildings associated with those. Kent Materials came before you in 2014 as an amended site plan. That was the gigantic mining project where over 50 feet in elevation was taken down, resulting in basically the 9-acre development pad that's there now. That's currently gravel. In 2019, the Carmel Central School District purchased the property with the desire to have their bus garage. Series of unfortunate events didn't happen, and the property went up for sale. Morrow Equipment now is a contract vendee to purchase the property and doing their current due diligence before you now with a site plan approval. So the existing conditions that are on site, it's a 26-acre parcel, half of which basically is a DEC or town-regulated wetland. It's in the IOC zone, the industrial, office, and commercial zone. It is located on Route 52. with 52 on the western border and 84 on the eastern border, with the exit 58 on-ramp as part of that border. The development that was completed in 2019 is in the southern half of the project and the site, and that is currently a gravel pad. There are 2 stormwater basins that were constructed as part of that development, and they're in the central portion of the site. Just to give you a general idea of that, we have the wetlands to the north of the property, the southern development, and 2 stormwater basins. 52 of the property. There is also a well on site that will be abandoned as part of this project. The project before you now is for a warehouse storage facility and its associated functions as part of the Morrow Equipment Company, LLC. They are proposing a 22,400 square foot main building in the front of the property. This is the main building here. A 6,450 square foot building for washing and painting of the equipment. Asphalt parking in the front, concrete work areas surrounding the buildings, and then gravel work storage areas in the back. Landscaping, lighting, and fencing are also proposed. A new well and septic are also part of this project. 2 variances we're looking for, which I'll get into slightly, but Jennifer will get into a little bit more, are for the crane and the stacked inventory. The crane, in my opinion, is pretty cool. Who doesn't love a crane? The crane itself is 99 feet high. It's mobile and electric. It is a tower yard crane and remotely operated from the ground. It's located behind the building as well, so a lot of that will be obstructed from views in the surrounding areas. It runs on 2 rail systems, basically east and west on the property in that development pad, with a 365 swing of the boom for operations. The variance we're requesting as part of the crane is a 59-foot variance because it is 99 feet, where 40 feet is permitted for a structure. The stacked inventory is the other variance we're seeking. That pertains to the neatly organized crane pieces that are stacked on top of each other to be roughly 32 feet high. The crane itself is like 8 by 8, and they stack on top like Tinkertoy kind of stacking. That's the only way I can explain it, sorry. But the variance we're seeking is a 22-foot high variance where 10 is permitted and 32 is proposed. The project is proposing 15 to 20 employees on site daily, and that's between the office and the yard itself. We don't anticipate visitors, but we do have an allocation for that for the parking in front in case there is the occasional visitor. Hours of operation are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and a very occasional Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Traffic, as I mentioned, would be the 15 to 20 employees daily during peak trips. And then the truck traffic anticipated would basically range and vary depending on the project that is going out the crane operation, where it's going, and the size of the crane. But roughly it would be about 10 truck trips over a few days period of time just to deliver the equipment. And then other days there would be nothing, or maybe nothing. Single box trucks are also included in that. So we wanted to take a look at what the building looks like. General concept. Exactly the building. That would be the property of the project.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't really hear.
Sorry. The existing wetland areas here, there's the 2 stormwater basins, the new wash building, the crane on the rails, the large slope, and then the pet hospital. The other 2 sections we've pulled are generally from close to the main entrance, running through to the back of the site to 84, and then the same further down the hill as the grade change dives down toward the wetlands here. So these begin to show you generally what would be visible from the surrounding areas. We don't ever want to say that this will never be visible because there may be glimpses certain areas, but from the 2 gas stations, between the distance and the existing vegetation, you'll have very obscured views. From the pet hospital, you have the existing vegetation here, and then filtered through about 250 feet of existing vegetation. And because of the ground elevation and grade change, you look over the top of the crane. From Route 52, closer to the entrance, you have basically a view cut off by the main building. So this actually helps to show the extent of where the crane operation will be. From here to here are the limits of where the crane will operate. Majority of the time, the crane will operate in this general vicinity, with the boom facing to the 84 direction. So there's a small area of the crane that would be visible from 52, and again from the 84 would be a very small area as well. So there's a large portion that would not be visible or have very filtered views between the main building and the existing vegetation. And again, from the other areas with the grade change along 52, you have 52 here, and then looking at the top of the building, again, very small portions of the boom that would be visible. 84 is a little more visible, but there again is existing vegetation that would filter that view. So we'll hand this over to Ron to give us a little more information
Sorry.
about Morrow Equipment.
Can I just ask you one question before you
Sure.
hand it over? What is the length of the boom? Do we know? It doesn't say. And the counterweights?
It's on the other drawing. I think it's about 180.
180? Okay.
We can verify that, yes.
Good evening. I'm Ron Yakin, Morrow Equipment. Morrow Equipment is the largest tower crane company in the United States. We have approximately 18 offices throughout the major cities. Locally here, we've been based in Millwood, New York for over 50 years now, and we've outgrown that facility, so this site became available, and we thought it's ideal for our type of operation. It's close to 84, so any traffic, truck traffic, could get right on 84. Morrow, we've have done most of the major projects in the United States. If you look in White Plains, you'll see a number of our cranes in New Rochelle, New York City, and we also helped rebuild the Pentagon after 9/11. The cranes come apart in basically 20 to 40-foot sections. They're put on tractor trailers, delivered to the job sites, and as the buildings get higher, we add more sections to the top and climbs up the building, attaches to the building. Upon completion, it climbs down, and we put it back on trucks. We'd bring it back to this yard where it would be cleaned, serviced, overhauled. They're all electric cranes. We don't have any diesel cranes. And we store them for the next job. That's kind of an overview. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sure. In addition to storing Are are you servicing the units when they come in? Inspections, repairs, things like that? Is that
Yes.
part of it? Okay. And I imagine there'd be some welding going on if that's needed?
Very, very rarely.
Right.
Yeah. There's mainly electrical work, control panels. There's a lot of electrics in these cranes. And over the past 50 years, they've gotten a lot more sophisticated, a lot of computers. You have to be a sophisticated technician now to really repair the cranes.
But the tower sections themselves, the work is minimal that you would do on that? Or the repainting?
Basically, we clean them, and the joints where they come together, pins go in, we would clean those pins, apply a light coating of grease to prevent any rusting, and when required, they would be then repainted.
And if there's some damage, I imagine you'd be repairing damage?
If there was, yeah.
Right, okay.
May I ask, is that normally done inside, or is it also done outside in the yard?
Most of the work would be done inside. That's why we have this building. We have a large overhead crane. As you see, we have the trucks can actually drive through the building. The overhead crane can pick it up, move it into the building, and get service there. And here in the Northeast, I mean, I've lived here all my life, so we know the weather is in winter and stuff. It's tough to do work outside. Yeah.
Right. At our last meeting, you mentioned that the boom will always be up, and it's going to weather vane.
Correct.
Right? So it'll just spin with the weather, and it'll always point downwind, basically.
Right, and this site runs east-west. Most of the winds come from the west here. So we would point the boom at the end of the day towards 84. So most days it would still remain there. But if wind came up, it will drift slowly around
Right.
to point like a weather vane.
Right. Do you have a severe weather plan, if we're expecting, hurricane force winds, things like that, to drop the boom? Is that part of the plan?
No, with this crane, I mean, we've had the cranes up on Miami Beach when the severe hurricanes come, and the crane just weather vanes. And this crane is so low that it wouldn't even be a factor.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So to wrap up our presentation this evening, not this morning. It's Thursday. It's been a week. I want to introduce myself, Jennifer Gray, the project attorney on behalf of Keenan Bean, here for Morrow Equipment. And there's two issues I just want to talk to the board about tonight before we get to your consultant's comments as well. And they relate to SECRA and some zoning points. I understand from your work session, which I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend, but I understand from Jamie that it was discussed that you would be doing a coordinated SECRA review. You would intend to be lead agency for that review. And what that would basically mean is those variances that we would be seeking from the zoning board couldn't be acted upon until you finish your SECRA review. And we're not objecting to the coordinated review. What we would ask is for a referral to the zoning board so we can start to have conversations with the zoning board, introduce them to the project, introduce the variances to them so that we really truly can have a coordinated review. You can get input back from them. We can get some early feedback. The crane element and the outdoor storage are such critical and essential components to this project. It's really important for the applicant to get that feedback from the zoning board as early as possible in the process. We completely understand that we could not ask the zoning board to make decisions on those variances until you are done with your work on the SECRA. The other part of why we would want to go to the zoning board at an early stage is, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we did actually make an application to the zoning board end of last summer, early fall, seeking an interpretation about whether the building height provision in the zoning code even applies to something like a crane that's moving on rails. So we did make that request to the zoning board. We attended one of their work sessions. We ended up withdrawing that application without getting a formal determination from them, but we would like to revisit that issue with them and have a full discussion about the issue of whether the building height requirement in the code even applies to this crane. So the other thing I wanted to mention related to zoning was we did see Mr. Barber's memo, and he mentioned something about the use classification here. We submitted the project with a principal permitted use of the warehouse, storage, and distribution facility in the IOC district. We understand there's some question about whether a contractor or office contractor's yard is also proposed here. Our position is that the principal permitted use is the warehouse, storage, and distribution facility, and things like the office, the outdoor storage, the wash building, those are all accessory uses that are customarily and incidental to the principal use. We're happy to have discussions with Mr. Barber and the building department, before your next meeting, so we can sort out and make sure that we're all on the same page as far as the use classification. But I wanted to just make sure it was clear that our proposal was to be a permitted use under the warehouse, storage, and distribution facility category. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. But otherwise, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody? Rich? Any questions?
So we did have an opportunity to initially discuss this at the workshop, you recall, last Thursday. Subsequent to that, I had an opportunity to do a very cursorial preliminary review of the materials submitted. It is recognized that this is a very preliminary submittal. At this time, it's not a complete submittal. There's several components that would constitute a complete submittal that are indicated in my memo that the board should request of the applicant before you move forward with any decision-making relative to zoning or seeker or anything like that as well. So I think that where we are right now is I wrote the memo just kind of bulleting some thoughts, recognizing that this is not a complete process at all and will be an ongoing process to receive some additional materials. Under the seeker process, we did receive a short form EAF. We did recommend, and the board, I believe, agreed at the time that at minimal, at present, they'd like to see a long form Part 1 EAF to really start to sink their teeth in and evaluate some potential impacts. We did talk a little bit about the zoning. The use aspect of it, where it's a little nebulous for me, is within the ILC zone with respect to the painting and repairing and what have you. There are certainly uses for industrial and warehousing. There's contractors' yards. There's ancillary uses. But there's nothing that I can really pinpoint to something like that in the code. And I think, and I do agree, that it's perhaps an interpretive component the zoning board needs to look at, if not also Mr. Walters. So at this time, really just have my memo. We can start to work off of that. I'm happy to talk with the applicant if the board gives me permission to do so, along with Mr. Andrews. But I think at this time it's very preliminary in our review. Any questions?
Good evening. Again, for the record, I'm John Andrews, the engineer to the planning board. It's nice to have a full complement from the applicant this evening, their engineer, the applicant, and their attorney. Unfortunately, we do not have our attorney with us this evening. However, we have had some brief interaction with him. I guess you spoke to him as well. A couple things I just want to point out for the boards. I don't think anyone is against a referral to the zoning board. I think it is a matter of timing. And as Mr. Barber indicated, and I think is laid out in his memo, and I did not prepare one because we were trying to keep this simple until we got into this a little bit. I think it is our position that the application remains somewhat incomplete and that we would like to see, for instance, some of the things that they discussed this evening and at the workshop aren't really clearly detailed in the application. They have been declared very clearly laid out in their discussions this evening, but we'd like to make sure all the paperwork catches up with their concepts. For instance, tonight was the first time I'd heard that they were even looking for a clarification from the ZBA. So I think what we really need is a more complete and updated application. We believe, and Bruce, myself, and Mr. Areola, council have discussed it, we probably need a full environmental assessment form, part 1. We probably would like to see an expanded narrative that explains exactly what these folks have explained to us this evening. And there were a number of items on their application that they indicated were deferred. And I understand that, and I'm not saying I need them tomorrow, but there are certain basic elements that probably should be fleshed out a little bit more. Jamie has said on both occasions that they've been here, they want to use the existing storm drainage facilities. I have no problem with that. However, they're proposing a rather large concrete mass out there and a few other things, so we need to see how all that stuff works. And I realize it's early and it's premature, but I'm sure Jamie's office has thought about some of that stuff. So I think what Bruce and I, and that's the purpose of Bruce's memo, was to get some of the basics in the application so that you then have something that you can intelligently refer out and make your determinations on.
Okay. So there's nothing to be done tonight?
Not that I see.
Okay.
So we appreciate that. We appreciate the sentiment that no one is necessarily against a referral. It's just a matter of timing, and we understand that. We would just hope that once we make our next submittal at the next meeting, perhaps you would consider making that referral to the zoning board again on the earlier side, because as I mentioned before, the crane and the outdoor storage are such critical, they're essential. They're essential components to this project, and we're really looking for that feedback from the zoning board as early as possible. But we understand Mr. Andrews and Mr. Barber's point. You want to have a little bit more better understanding of the scope of the project, a little bit more data, and I'm sure Jamie would concur. We're happy to provide that.
Okay.
Question.
You have the SWIP already done, right, Jamie?
Excuse me. Question.
Yes.
Is there a crane down in Millwood?
Yes.
How tall is that one?
I'm sorry?
How tall is it?
Do you want to stand up? Sorry.
I'd have to check it, but I think it's about 90 feet.
About the same size as this crane?
Pretty much, yeah.
So if we zip down there, we can see it?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Now, that crane, so you know, is a little different. That crane is a luffing boom crane, where this is a fixed jib crane. So that crane actually, when it booms up, is higher, because you have the tower and then a luffing boom, where this is a horizontal boom.
And what about the color of the crane, the metal?
That crane is a white crane, white and blue. That was one model. This crane, their standard leaf hair colors are yellow and gray.
Will be something that'll blend in?
A lot of gray days here.
They certainly are.
Got to paint the green.
If there's plenty of aspen around.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody?
Does it need lights on top?
I'm sorry?
Does it need lights on top during the night?
Well, what we have done in Millwood is, especially around July 4th, our guys have put an American flag up there and put a spotlight on it. And I've got a lot of great letters from local people thanking us for putting up the flag. And at the holiday times, they usually put up a Christmas tree. So, I mean, the local people there in Millwood like that stuff. I mean, we would probably do the same here if it was permitted, but if not, you know. But it's a great feeling.
Requirements for like air traffic
When
or
you-
anything like that. It's not tall enough or anything like that, is it?
Especially when it's very dark night and you drive through Millwood and you see the American flag up there on the top of the crane with a light on it. It just is a great feeling.
Okay.
I don't think this rises to the level where it's FAA.
Correct. I remember seeing the balls on 84 over the wires since I was a little kid.
It's below the standards, so it's not
Okay.
a required element on these cranes.
Which is better.
Yeah, usually it's about 200 feet.
Yeah, and this particular one, I think, is probably not much higher than the slope behind it, actually.
Right. And the other thing to keep in mind, the 90 feet that we're talking about is the tippity top. The
Right.
main boom is about roughly 25, 30 feet below that.
Thank you.
And again, it just goes to my point, if we can get all this stuff and all the documentation and get a complete application, because I think that might have been your conversation with Mr. Arioli, we have no problem with getting there early, we just want to make sure that we don't send it with the letter that says, here's an application, we don't know what to do with it yet, but look at it. So what we want to be able to do is say, here's an application, we want to be lead agency, these are the elements that we feel that have been identified as a concern, and we need your input soon. So that's our goal, is to make sure it's a worthwhile referral.
That's fair.
Okay.
Okay, everybody good? Good. Okay, I guess, Jamie, you may stay there. Patterson Crossing is next.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Jamie LaJudas from Inside Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. Here on behalf of the Patterson Crossing request for an extension. We discussed at the workshop that we have already exhausted our 2 90-day extensions and then would at this point need to go for a reapproval. So we are obviously open to that and will be providing you with an application on the next submission date for a reapproval request.
Okay.
Just to be clear, too, the expiration is July 2nd for the 2 90-day approvals that presently are in place, and the meeting is until thereafter. So to reflect on the discussion we had last week, the board is willing to basically have, even though it's going to be after the date of expiration, reflect the new, if you so choose to do so, reapproval date of that July 2nd date. Okay, we're all clear on that. Okay?
Mm-hmm. There's no movement since over there on anything?
There's movement. I'm just not at liberty to say anything yet.
Okay.
I guess that's it.
So I think that's it, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
We good?
We'll be back. Thank you very much.
All right, good night.
Have a great night.
All right, Torres property.
Mr. Torres has a property at 193 Ludingtonville Road, and at some juncture, a substantial amount of fill was introduced to his property without associated permits. The planning board has considered this and has, as in the past, requested that the soil be tested to meet, if it's to stay in place, unrestricted New York State Department of Environment and Conservation soil standards. Paul Lynch, the applicant's engineer, has put together a testing plan and report and protocols, of which there will be 3 test samples. He has revised his map at the request of the board at the last meeting to include the toe of the slope area. He's going to be digging down with a spoon, basically device to go every 2 feet and do a bulk sample for the fill section. And then the second sample is in the virgin soil as to be separately sent to the lab under chain of custody to make sure that the soil, if contaminated, has not gotten into the virgin soil areas. He'll be submitting a report to this board once the results of the tests are back, so that the board may make a determination as to whether or not the soil should be stay in place, should be graded, should be removed, or any combination thereafter. There are appropriate erosion sediment controls in place. The site has been stable. We've had a couple of site inspections out there. So the action for this board to take tonight is only to approve the testing protocols and plan that Mr. Lynch put together and allow him to proceed accordingly. Any questions?
None.
Okay.
Oh, you have nothing? I thought you were going to get there. No. So we just want to make a motion to accept the testing protocol as per.
Accept and authorize and proceed. Yes.
To accept it and authorize to proceed. We would like to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
We would like to second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're below the line now.
That's right. Bruce elected me. So below the line, I'm going to deal with the first three all as one, Metric Motors, Annunziata, and Westfall. As you are all aware, we've had some give and take between the various owners, and it is our position, that of Bruce and myself, that we have insufficient information on any of those to move forward. We've made the engineer to the applicant aware of that. I think some of you were copied on an email I sent to him and said, hey, this is what we need at a minimum. Once you provide that, we'll be able to move forward. So it's clearly in their hands. TJ's contracting, the way we left it, he was going to get an engineer. He may still be in that process. A-class builders, that's the sewer allocation issue.
Still with the town. It's still with the town, I think.
I think it's still at the town board level. James Smith Physical Training, you should have received in your packets a letter from Mr. Walters identifying that as a de minimis project. This gentleman wants to use an existing building. It's a bit of a change in use, but he's going to use an existing garage, no physical modifications, and run basically a fitness facility, a one-on-one training facility.
He already has advertisements out.
Yeah, and Bill's worked with him, and the letter speaks for itself, so there is nothing that you need to do except acknowledge it.
It was a commercial use to begin with, so technically it's one use, but technically it was determined not to be a real change in use. Just a change in what business.
Okay.
The Ryder property, I think you're all familiar with that ongoing saga. The last we spoke with Mr. Arioli, he's been having some conversations with Mr. Schilling, but nothing has yet reached fruition. AJ First Realty, I think we're waiting on them. They have an engineer, Mr. Greenberg. Rapoli, I believe a submission was received, Vera?
No,
Paul indicated, Bruce and I did get some correspondence from Paul Lynch, who is their engineer. He will be submitting for next meeting. So we believe that to be moving forward. Gypsy Trail Club, no pun intended, it's been nothing but crickets. Very silent. Guy Lazaka Mayette, that one is also in Paul Lynch's hands. And the way he described it, Rapoli was one, this one is two, so they may come in. I'm sorry. Usually my voice carries. Guy Lazaka Mayette, they may come in at the same time. Nichols Road, that's a little quiet for now. And Route 52 development, you may have seen some recent emails. They've apparently modified their project yet again and are seeking an informal meeting. It's being spearheaded and handled by Mr. Arioli. And when we get the information we need, he may reach out to you to set up that meeting.
Okay.
And that's where we stand.
Is that everything? Okay. Just before we leave, for everybody that's father out there, wish you all a happy Father's Day for Sunday. And since 4th of July actually falls on what would be our workshop, which we are not having the workshop, happy 4th of July to everybody.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We want to make a motion to end this meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Who wants to second it?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.
So, is
There
Vera
you
going
go.
to be here tomorrow so we can get those bonds? Because Vera's usually not here on Fridays.
We'll talk to her.
Okay.